Greetings to all students and welcome to Weld 101, Shielded Metal Arc Welding, or as we call it, SMAW. My name is Aaron Miller, and today in this lesson we're going to cover Introduction to Shielded Metal Arc Welding. I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation as a guide, but please do not take pictures with your cell phone. Take notes that you have reference notes for your notebook. During a test, I will let you use your notes, but not your cell phone. No exceptions. Upon completion of this lesson, the student will be able to do a few things. Describe the steps and safe setup of the welding equipment for shielded metal arc and identify the parts of the equipment. Remember, safety is always first, and keep in mind, these machines are powerful and are designed to join and cut metal from 1/16 of an inch to 8 inches and thicker, and won't have any problem removing your fingers, head, or eyes. So proceed with caution. Don't be afraid, but know what you're supposed to do. Do not guess. Don't see what will happen if you click a switch. And please ask if you don't know. I've attached a video on safety to assist you in this activity of safety. Students should be able to demonstrate basic welding skills as described in the video and shielded metal arc that I've attached and described the function of the shielded metal arc electrode. The electrode is one of the most important parts of the process, and the operator must be able to control the electrode to produce a good sound weld. And C, students will be able to describe the shielded metal arc welding puddle theory and function of the electrode. In other words, what's going on inside the welding pool, or puddle as we call it, when you strike the arc. It's important for the welder to know these things, to be a complete, educated welder. Not just skills, but know what's going on in the welding pool. Okay, in order to get started, the welder must know safety. Always remove any flammables from the work area, especially paper and wood, or even things like petroleum, gas, or oil. If necessary, when working in a confined space, the welder should always have a fire watch with a fire extinguisher, as the welder cannot see with his hood lowered in the welding position. Before work begins, always check your leads for loose or frayed wires that could arc in a place that you don't want them to. They could start a fire or ruin the welding piece with an arc where you don't want it. Okay, verify that the machine is plugged in the proper voltage and turn the machine on. Then attach the ground clamp to the workpiece to complete the circuit. Assemble the electrode holder and place the electrode in the electrode holder. The welder must adjust the amperage to the suggested amperage and strike the arc. Please view the video for instructions on how to weld in a straight line. Now we should identify the parts of the equipment. Before we get started in welding, I would like to identify these parts of this process. Number one, the power source. The power source produces the power for the arc to melt and melt the filler rod and the work pieces together. Okay. Without the power source, we won't be able to weld. It takes incoming voltage from the outside, from the power plant, into your house or the shop, and converts that to a welding amperage. You'll have a remote. The remote will be in your booth far away from the power source. It will have 10 indications on a dial representing a percentage of the amperage set on the power source. Each indication will be 10% of the amperage on the machine. For example, if you set the power source at 100 and turn the remote to 7 indications on the remote, you will be welding with 70 amps or 70% of 100. In this slide, I've used a video because the arc is hard for me to video with what I have available. So I've included 2 videos, one on safety and one on a weld in a straight line and entry-level welding for resources and so that the student may refer back to it anytime he pleases. Please view the video. If you have any questions, ask the instructor. In order to be a good welder, one must be able to do 2 consistent things. constantly to produce a good weld. Number one, you have to be able to identify molten slag from molten steel. Both molten slag and molten steel will be inside the weld pool. However, the molten steel will be a brighter red than the molten slag. The welder must be certain that all slag is burned out of the molten puddle before moving forward to produce a sound weld. The second critical skill is that the welder must be able to keep track of the two most outer edges of the welding pool. We call those the toe lines of the weld. In order to weld a straight line, the welder must control the molten steel to form a straight weld. He must be able to control the toe lines of the weld. In order for the welder, in our opinion, to be a complete welder, an educated welder, the electrode is one of the most important parts of the process. The welder must be able to control the electrode to produce a sound weld. The electrode carries the current from the power source to the parts to be joined. An arc is established by the welder by striking an arc on the workpiece and maintaining a gap of approximately 1/16 to an 1/8 between the electrode and the workpiece. That arc creates enough heat to melt both the electrode and workpiece. Also, as soon as the arc is struck, the pool is formed and a gas is produced from the electrode covering that protects the weld pool from the atmosphere. We call this a gas shield, and all welds require a gas shield or the weld become brittle and fail due to impurities in the atmosphere that gets inside the weld. The electrode or filler material melts into the weld pool and forms the welding joining the metal together. Okay, and here we have a picture of the weld in action, the electrode. Okay, and let me show you the parts of it. Here's the electrode covering. As soon as the arc is struck, we have a shielding atmosphere. You can see how it's covering the electrode, and this is the arc. This distance from the workpiece to the electrode is the arc, and it causes metals, droppings, and slag to come across the pool. And it joins, there's the weld material. It makes the weld. And also the slag forms on top of the weld pool. It protects the weld from cooling too fast and becoming brittle. Okay, and we have the direction of travel. And you can see this is basically a detailed visual aid of the process. Okay. Now for a quick review, the student should be able to describe the steps in safe setup, identify the parts of the process, demonstrate basic welding skills as shown in the video, be able to describe the shielded metal arc puddle theory and function of the electrode. Okay, clear your work area. Verify the machine's plugged in the proper voltage. Check for frayed wires. Turn the machine on. Attach your ground clamp. Assemble the work electrode holder. Adjust the amperage and start welding. Again, we have a power source attached to a remote that's in your booth. Electrode cables going to the electrode holder. An electrode. And another cable, the work cable, going to the ground clamp to complete the circuit, as you can see here. And I've attached these videos to show for reference if you need to get some ideas on how to weld on a straight line and also on safety. Critical skills necessary to make consistent beads, distinguish molten slag from molten steel, identify, keep track of the two most outer edges of the puddle. Be able to identify the function of the electrode, carries welding current to the arc, strikes an arc and maintains the gap which produces the heat. Also creates a shield that protects the gas shield that protects the weld pool and melts and adds filler metal. Okay, and here's a picture again showing the electrode covering, the core wire, the arc gap with metal, crossing the gap, solidified slag, weld metal, and the weld pool, and the shielding atmosphere, which is one of the most important things of welding. Okay, there will be a test covering these objectives at a later date. Thank you.